Hi, I'm Anatole, and this is my review of Neon Genesis Evangelion, Episode 4, and I believe I've finally got the title situation settled. So, Episode 4, two titles. First title, Rain After Running Away, and then the second title, Hedgehog's Dilemma. And from what I understand, the English title came about from a translation of the Japanese and then later was adopted into a second title. And the first title is a literal translation. The first title, so the title that the Japanese episode had originally is the one that is listed on IMDb. So if I'm correct, Hedgehog's Dilemma was the literal title in Japanese, and then the translation into English. And I apparently sometimes they're exactly the same, the two titles. Sometimes the English title is a lot looser in the translation. And so here we have Rain After Running Away. So those two titles are very different. The score for the episode on IMDb is 7.6. And if you've been following this reaction series, you saw me get very confused in episode 4 about one of the characters. And before recording, I watched again episodes 1 and 2. So I think that girl in the room with Shinji, her name is Rei, and then she is a pilot of an Eva, and she was injured, and it was because she was injured that Shinji was asked to pilot an Eva, even though he had no training. I think I've got that all that settled, all those questions about title and that mystery girl. Hopefully I've settled those. And so now please join me as after the intro, and I will do my reaction to episode 4 of Neon Genesis Evangelion. All right, I'm going to continue playing it in the Japanese with English subtitles. I'm doing that because I saw on one YouTuber's reaction series of Evangelion that some people complained about the English dubbing, the translation. And unless someone tells me otherwise, unless I get a number of people telling me they prefer the English, I'll just leave it in the original Japanese. While the opening credits sequence is playing, I'll give some more basic information about the episode. It was originally titled in Japanese Ame Niga Dashita Ato, and released October 25th, 1995. Listed directors, I'm pretty sure it's the same throughout the series for these directors. Tsuyoshi Kaga, Hideaki Anno, who's I think generally credited as the creative mind of the series, and Kazuya Tsuramaki. All right, well, the episode's beginning. Let's get into it. Is it just me, or is she always under the covers sleeping? At least the last 2 episodes. That's very Japanese. They're apologizing for that, even though it wasn't really their fault that they got put into the robot. You're still going to apologize if you're Japanese. This is a nice shot, the way it's framed with the rain off the left there. I really like that a lot, the way that the handles are moving. It's obscuring the fact that all these people are static, because we're looking here. Oh, this is really nice with the dissolves. It's very cinematic. Well, I really like this sequence a lot. Cassette tape player, that's dated. If this were the true future, it'd be a digital recording. Coochie coochie coo! Coochie 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 coo! The art direction in this episode is really nice. I love the way they use the red here. I have an idea what this nature represents to Shinji. One thing is freedom, and then another because we see these passions and unsettled emotions within him. Nature also represents that too. I really love the way they're doing the colors. And the framing of the composition of the shots is really good, really strong. So much for our Tom Sawyer summer. Like Shinjuku Station? Alright, is it Shinjuku? I know this is rebuilt Tokyo. There's the one that looks like the European train station. Is it Harajuku? Harajuku Station. Harajuku Station in Tokyo looks like a European train station. Speaking of which, this translation has been pretty good. My Japanese is just a little, not that advanced, but there hasn't been anything that struck me as being weirdly translated. I was recently watching the first episode of Vinland, and at the beginning of the episode there were some really awkward phrases, but so far the translation seems pretty clean to me. If you wanted to make a movie that was somehow representative of Japanese cinema, I think you could not go wrong by including a train station or a train sequence in your movie. Train station most specifically. Tempted to say it was Kurosawa who always had a train in every film of his. I could be wrong, but I do believe Kurosawa had, the modern films always had a train or train station. I could just be completely making that up out of nowhere. Or maybe it was Ozu. I'm off. Pay no attention to me. I think it was Kurosawa. Dodes Kadan has a whole big thing about trains. Oh, nice. Oh, he's hidden in the background. She doesn't see him. That's great. Oh, this is really good. And they're both sad for different reasons. She's sad because he's gone. He's sad because he's coming back. I like the way you can hear the cicadas in the background. That's great. That was really great. That felt like a European film, that last sequence. Okay, well, if you are new to my reaction of Neon Genesis Evangelion, after the episode plays, I will watch it off camera a second time and read some criticism about it, and then come back and give my review. So join me in a few, and I will give you my review of episode 4 of Neon Genesis Evangelion. Welcome back, and now for my review on episode 4 of Neon Genesis Evangelion, titled Rain After Running Away, or Hedgehog's Dilemma. Two titles, both of them are correct. What I thought was, well, first of all, let's talk about how this was a character episode. We had, through the first 3 episodes, scenes of battle, and as I've remarked before, and I'm not the first one to notice this, even though Neon Genesis Evangelion has the trappings of a mecha cartoon, it is not a generic mecha cartoon. So episode 2, when we had the big battle between an angel and Shinji, the battle itself was broken into 2 parts. We saw the beginning of the battle, and then we jumped ahead in time and were given a lot of the character moments, and then at the end of the episode we jump back into the battle, which is, at that point, we had already learned what the conclusion of the battle was. Shinji won, he didn't die. So that's the kind of unorthodox approach that so far has been pretty characteristic of the show, that it takes what is the normal blueprint and it goes outside the lines. And so this episode was a departure from what we had seen the first 3 episodes. There was no angel, there was no battle. Shinji never goes inside the mecha, and the reason for that is we get to see that we get to explore what Shinji's motivation would be for piloting the mecha, because up till now he has been an began as an unwitting participant and then really a grudging participant in this fight against the angels. And we've seen that each battle takes a greater toll on him, and there doesn't seem to be any true support for him. Misako tries to be the caring Misato, excuse me, just making sure I got the pronunciation of the name correct. Misato's trying to be the caring mentor to him, but she has her own failings. And in this episode we see that when he tells her he is emotionally unequipped to do this, he's just not capable of doing it without suffering severe emotional distress, she just says, well, if you want to quit, then just quit then, but don't do it because we're forcing you. No one's twisting your arm. If you want to leave, leave. She guilt trips him and doesn't show any true feelings of empathy for him. And we see this again and again, that the things that we would consider structures of civilization that give us a place and give us worth all fail Shinji. School fails him. Instead of creating an individual, it seems that the instructor there is more interested in giving him the nationalistic line on why the country has rebounded against the angels, and the work, quote unquote work, since he is 14, he should not be dealing with work issues. Work seems to fail because it's leading to his mental deterioration, and there's no one there to really give him the support for that he needs. There is no child psychologist or wartime psychologist, nothing there to deal with that aspect that is creating this pain within him. And we see that parenting fails. We haven't seen the parents, and the mentor that's supposed to be guiding him is not capable or well suited for the role. That's the hedgehog's dilemma. The people that should be there to help him only cause him more pain. And we find that there are only two areas where he seems to find some sort of comfort, and one is to completely leave civilization and go off into the wilderness, where he has no responsibility to do a Tom Sawyer. And then the second is in the friends that he's made, which was a surprising turn because last episode that just seemed to be another area that had failed for him. And so we see at the end he has found some reason for him to continue fighting, to risk his mental health and to jeopardize his life, and that is maybe in these connections he's made with his friends. And as I pointed out, the formal part of it, the elements of it that are part of the aesthetics were just amazing. I thought the best so far this episode. The framing of the composition, the colors, the expressionism, the way that we got into Shinji's psyche without Shinji having to use exposition to tell us that, by showing scenes that were meant to symbolically represent his emotional state. So I really, really liked this episode. It's the kind of episode that someone that's coming in here to this show just for a generic robot battle would be very unhappy with. They would call it very slow. But I think two things. One, if you're still with this show up to episode 4, you already know it's not going to be a generic kind of show, so you shouldn't be surprised by having a full episode that does a character detour. And then 2, after spending 3 episodes building the world, building the lore, giving us the conflict, and hitting enough of those points of the tropes of the genre, this series has earned this episode that is going to be specifically about building the characters, because we need to be able to relate to them so that we feel for them later when the stakes are raised. If you raise the stakes without ever showing us character, then it's just going to be something we aren't buying into. We won't buy into the stakes. And that's about it. Those are my thoughts on this episode, my review, and thank you for joining me for my reaction and review. I hope you'll join me again for episode number 5 with its 2 titles. And that was my review reaction of episode 4. Take care and be well. Goodbye.